Here we go.
It's the Benjamin Dixon Show.
Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is
not merely peace in our time, but peace in all time.
I have no fear whatsoever of anybody or anything.
Did you think no one was watching?
Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Your mission.
Suppose we go where no man has gone before.
To reclaim the American dream.
To be given the rights of a human being. To be afforded equal rights and equal opportunities.
It's the Benjamin Dixon Show. If you're hearing his voice, you're hearing the voice of reason.
You certainly come to the right place.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Benjamin Dixon Show. I am your host, Benjamin Dixon. It is Monday, November 2nd, 2015, and I want to thank you for joining me today. You could have been anywhere in the world, whenever you're listening to this. You know, it may be tomorrow morning. And if it's tomorrow morning, then that means it's already, well, anyway, I already lost myself. I can't even go down that road. But thank you so much for joining us. There's a lot happening in the news. But I have to start with what just transpired the previous weekend. Halloween, All Hallows Eve, whatever you want to call it. A pretty big holiday across the globe. But it was something happens every Halloween. Something happens every Halloween that requires some special attention. So you have people who don't realize the so you have two things that happen. One, you have people who are overly alarmist and overly offended by every single thing. And then you have people who don't realize what you've done is extremely offensive. And there's a reason I'm starting here. One, because the holiday just went by, but two, because this was a crazy weekend. First, you had the Garfield County, Oklahoma sheriff, not sheriff, but the mayor's husband, the mayor of a county, or the city, or whatever, however they do their jurisdiction in Oklahoma. The mayor's husband got together with a couple of friends and decided it would be a funny idea, a good idea, to dress up as Klansmen. So they cut holes in sheets, but they didn't stop there. They went one step further and they pretended or motioned or gestured as if they were going to burn a cross. And when it came out that it was the mayor's husband, of course, the mayor disavowed it, even though I'm not quite sure how the mayor could not notice her husband talking about it, planning it, cutting holes in sheets, getting together with his buddies. How does she not notice any of that? But she says she didn't know. And so not only did he cut holes in sheets and they dressed up as Klansmen, but they also gestured as though they were going to burn a cross. And somehow they thought that was going to be funny. So you have that going on. And then over at, I want to get the school right, but I want to put this one image. This is the one image I decided to show. At a university, someone decided to come in dressed, I guess, I don't know, what are they looking like? Lil Wayne? I'm not sure who they're supposed to be. But this was sent over to me by one of the listeners. And so, you know, people dress up in blackface, people do the whole thing. And they can't imagine for the life of them why it's offensive. And so this actually took place. Let me just pull that up really quickly so I can tell you where that took place. But it was happening all over. All over the country. Arkansas Tech University. And the interesting thing about that is that the school had a lot of complaints, but the school did absolutely nothing about it. So here's a student who came to class. This is not somebody who did this on their spare time at a party at home. They came to class in blackface, and everybody's just wondering why it's offensive. Bill Maher did a little bit on it on Friday night, and normally I like Bill Maher. I mean, actually, I do like Bill Maher, and for all intents and purposes, I do like Bill Maher. But he was basically saying, you know, get over it. It's just one night of the year. You know, it's you know, people are doing it for fun. You know, the political correct police basically saying that we all need to just chill out and let people dress the way they want to dress. Pardon me, for Halloween, and not to be so easily offended. And here's the problem with that, Bill Maher. The problem with that is that when nothing offends you, then you would never understand being offended. Now, I am not a highly political correct person. I'm not, but I'm also not intentionally obtuse into thinking or suggesting that nothing is offensive and that everything should be fair game. And that's essentially what Bill Maher was suggesting, is that, kind of just get over it. So, of course, he wouldn't pay attention to any tweets from me, but I sent them over a tweet. And actually, hang on, let me pour that up to you on your screen, because there are some things that are just offensive. And I think people try to, I don't know what it is. Is it like reverse, just the antithesis of political correctness, to intentionally allow people to offend for the sake of offense? And actually, I'm just going to bring it up off of my Twitter page. But I want you to see this particular tweet that I sent over. Here is someone who decided over Halloween, I think this was last Halloween, but a white man dressed up in blackface decided to go as Trayvon Martin with the bullet, blood, and all, the Skittles, the iced tea, and the blood. Are we to not be offended by that? And then I realized, if you've never been in a marginalized group, then it's a possibility that you would not understand what it is to be offended. Now, in all fairness, it's not just white people who do this. I'm going to bring up one other tweet. This is an image from of a black woman who decided to dress up. Hang on, let's share that. Hang on, we'll get to that slide in a minute. She decided to dress up as a Native American, the cliche Native American headdress and all. And I thought this tweet was interesting. From Poetic Bella, said, just like we find it offensive for people to dress up in blackface, Native Americans find this offensive. We should think about that when we choose costumes. Well, she clapped back and said, girl, shut up. It's Halloween. Go have a drink and do something fun with your life. Let people enjoy. Here's the question. Do we let people enjoy at the expense of a marginalized group, or at the expense of something that is offensive? I mean, if I decided to dress up as Hitler for Halloween, I'm quite sure I would deserve some public shaming, for lack of a better word. If I decided to dress up as, I don't know, let's say Jared Fogle, that's pretty offensive. Some things are offensive. And for Bill Maher to do, and I was going to play a clip of his segment, but I decided not to, just because I don't want to have to fight Google on copyright infringement. But you can look it up and you can see how, it sounds reasonable what he's saying. It's like, just chill out, almost like this black woman said, Toya Wright said, it's Halloween, just chill out and let people have fun. But the problem is, you're having fun at the expense of something that offends someone else. And I don't think that it's unreasonable for us to just be reasonable and say that, what, this offends somebody, so is it that difficult for me not to do it? Here's the problem. Many people are doing this expressly for the offense. And so it's not as though they can't do it. It's not as though it's illegal. But what Bill Maher was suggesting is that we just let it be, that we don't say anything about it. Just let people have fun. Oh, hell, it's just a bunch of fun. But the problem is, because there's no law against it, right? And we're not suggesting that there should ever be a law against it. But when people do things intentionally to cause harm, emotional harm to any group, right? Because I gave you an example of a black woman who did something offensive to Native Americans. It's not just white people, it's not just white men. I could imagine that white men have many other groups that they have to be concerned with, right? They can't dress up as Mexicans anymore in the sombrero. They can't dress up as Native Americans. They can't even name their football team the Redskins. I mean, that crosses race, and gender. But you know what I'm saying? But think about it this way. What's offensive to you? For me to see someone dressed up as Trayvon Martin is not only offensive, but it means that you are intentionally trying to cause harm. You're trying to make and you're trying to insult, you're trying to make a political statement. If not, you're just being extremely ignorant, like these people in Garfield County, Oklahoma, dressed up as the Klan. You cannot dress up as the Klan and not understand that it is going to be offensive to someone. Should it be outlawed? No. But should we be silenced by people like Bill Maher, who says, oh, just get over it. It's just Halloween. Political correctness run amok. I want to be Republican because I'm tired of all these pansy liberals being, offended by everything. Well, Bill Maher, apparently there's nothing that offends you. I guess what, except the IRS? I don't know what would offend you if you've never been in a marginalized group. I guess, maybe even if I dressed up as Hitler, maybe it wouldn't offend him, but that does not set the standard for the rest of the nation. We should be able to publicly address these things and say that it's not acceptable. We should be able to say that this is not, this may be legal. No one's saying that it shouldn't be. No one is saying that these people should be accosted, arrested, or attacked in public, nothing like that. But in the same token, we should be able to verbally address what makes us sick about these things and what is acceptable in the normal course of business. Now, it didn't just stop there. So you have the Garfield County mayor's husband and his buddies dressed up as the Klan. And then you had this student at Arkansas Tech, and it's across the country, right? It's every single Halloween you run into this. And then the same debate comes up. Should we or should we not be politically correct? Should we or should we not consider the ramifications, or who are we offending? How can we, here's the question. How can we dictate to someone what they should or should not be offended by? There's another tweet. There's a lot of tweeting going on this weekend. There's another tweet, some guy this morning. I don't really know who he is. And maybe Kevin Drum. Let me see. I think he had he has a check mark by his name. So let's see who he is. So Kevin Drum, political blogger from Mother Jones. Okay, great. That's who he is. So Kevin Drum this morning tweeted out that that to the left, an express message to people on the left that we should not always call something sexist and racist and save it for the things that really are sexist and racist. Here's the problem with that. Who are we allowing to define what's sexist and racist? Because if we leave it to people like Bill Maher, which I like Bill Maher, but if we leave it to him, then pretty much nothing will ever be sexist or racist. If we leave it to people like Kevin Drum, then nothing will be sexist. Who gets to define what is offensive, if not the people who feel offended? And get me wrong, I know there's a lot of people who run around, they're offended by everything. There's this outrage porn, that's what we call it in the writing industry. We write about things that to make people angry, and sometimes it includes full offense, like you're not really offended, but there's something that maybe you should be offended by, and so that you're going to feign your offense so that you could write a blog article and get 10,000 clicks and make your check for the month. I understand the entire industry. I do. But if we are always going to try avoiding being politically correct for the sake of not being politically correct, then we allow just the floodgates to come open. And then we're sitting around for people like Kevin Drum to tell us, well, is that offensive or not? Is that sexist or not? Is that racist or not? We're going to always be waiting on people who are never in a position to be offended because they've always been in the dominant position in the dominant culture. And so while you have these guys, I'm going to segue. I'm going to move on from that. While you have these guys in, where is that? Garfield County, Oklahoma, dressing up as the Klan, you have Anonymous, or allegedly Anonymous, releasing the names of about 5 people that they released today who are elected officials who are allegedly a part of the Klan. This is the kind of weekend we had, and I haven't even gotten started with the Republican Party, with Black Lives Matter. All that's coming. I'm going to talk about that. But you have anonymous, and I say anonymous allegedly. It's a group that the general people believed it was anonymous, but anonymous came out and distanced themselves from it. And I'm not going to name the names of the people. There's about 5 or 6 people. You can find the article, but I'm not going to spread that article because anonymous distanced themselves from it because it does not look as the names that came out today. We don't know yet if they are legitimate, but the real anonymous is letting us know that on the 5th of November, remember the 5th of November, that they're going to release 1,000 names of elected officials, U.S. congressmen, senators, mayors, governors, 1,000 people who are affiliated with the Ku Klux Klan. So you have in Garfield County, I had to look at my paper, Garfield County, they're dressing up, pretending to be the Klan because they thought it was funny. And then you have allegedly, hundreds, if not, 1,000 people affiliated with the Klan, and Anonymous is getting ready to put that information out. And so we had this big debate over what that should mean when Anonymous puts it out. What does that mean for an elected official? I don't know. I have my opinion. I do want yours. You could join the conversation, 857-600-0518. If your elected representative landed on anonymous list of Klansmen, Klan affiliated or Klan. I mean, here's the thing. We already know, was it Kevin Scalise? I know his last name is Scalise. We already know, he's affiliated with the Klan, right? He's spoken at white supremacist conferences, and he's high ranking in the House Republican caucus. So, I mean, what happens? What happens at this point? What happens when we find out other officials, if anything? I think there are some things that should not be acceptable, right? If we feign anger over the Black Panthers, which is, the original Black Panthers, there's really no reason for anyone to have any qualm with them. The new Black Panthers, I'm not a fan of whatsoever. But everyone feigns to be, so upset over the new Black Panther Party, right? And everyone, and I'm not a fan. I'm just, telling everyone I don't like. I'm not a fan of Louis Farrakhan, right? But everyone seems to get their panties in a wad, in a twist over Louis Farrakhan. If we're going to be so upset about them, then at what point are we going to say that there are some things that come from the dominant culture that are not acceptable? Or do we simply say, we're too politically correct? You're right. We can be upset about Black Lives Matter. We can call Black Lives Matter racist, but people who are complaining about the Confederate flag, you're being politically correct. We can get in an uproar over Louis Farrakhan, who I am not a fan of. He put out a new video today that I still don't like him, but still, we're going to get in the uproar over Louis Farrakhan. But the Confederate flag, or Steve Scalise, not Kevin, it was Steve Scalise. There it is. Steve Scalise, who has spoken in front of white supremacist group, heavily associated with white supremacist groups. He's an elected official. If we wait on people to tell us what we should or should not be offended by, then anything they do will never be offensive, and everything that we do would be offensive. So I completely reject that tweet from Kevin Drum from Mother Jones. Who is the arbiter of what is offensive, what is sexist, what is racist, if not the people who are the likely target of that type of offense, the people who have been marginalized? Cannot the Native Americans dictate what is offensive to them? Can Black people not dictate what's offensive to them? Can Jewish people not tell you that the Nazi, the neo-Nazi flag, or the Nazism in general is offensive? The people who have been marginalized in history should be able to dictate what is offensive to them. But we'll always play that game where Fox News, Bill O'Reilly would want to tell us to be terrified and offended, and we should be ashamed of ourselves because we affiliated or did something or walked side by side along Farrakhan or Black Lives Matter or, you know, anything and everything that does not kowtow and acquiesce to their ideology. Because at the end of the day, I'm feeling like my old self again. At the end of the day, the only thing that is offensive to people like that is anything that does not conform to their ideology. That's it. You know, Fox News is only going to be offended, and it's a faux offense, right? They're only going to tell you to be angry about or be sickened by or be repulsed by things that do not conform to their political ideology. They're not offended by anything. When has Bill O'Reilly ever been in an oppressed minority? Well, I guess maybe he's an Irish last name, so perhaps there's a time in American history. But, you know, I'm not going to say that's not real oppression, but it's not oppression that can compare to what happened to the Native Americans, what happened to Jewish people, what happened to African Americans, right? So the only thing that is genuinely offensive to people like that is something that goes against their political ideology. That's why they would take something as simple as Black Lives Matter and compare it to ISIS. You know, these imbeciles try to make Black Lives Matter analogous to, I don't even know if I said that one right. I'll check it out after the fact, to ISIS, right? And the only people who can be racist are, you know, Al Sharpton, you know, never mind Steve Scalise, never mind people who are dressing in blackface, never mind people who are saying all types of things, the people who dressed up as Trayvon Martin, never mind the fact of never mind any of that. The only people who are racist in America are people who call out racism, because calling out racism goes counter to their ideology. So if we're going to sit back and wait on people like Bill O'Reilly, and one last thing, this is the interesting intersection that I find with when you find people. Let me start that sentence over. Here's the thing. In the world we live today, if you ever find yourself in lockstep with conservatism, you need to take a minute and reevaluate your life and reevaluate your position. I know that sounds a little absolutist, but if you ever find yourself in lockstep and in sync with conservatism, modern conservatism, then you need to reevaluate your position. In this way, Bill Maher is in lockstep with Bill O'Reilly. What's his name? Kevin Drum from Mother Jones, which is usually a liberal rag. You know, he's in lockstep with Bill O'Reilly and conservatism, because they don't think this is offensive and they want to dictate to us what is offensive. And if I ever found myself on the same side as conservatism in lockstep on a particular issue, I need to take a step back and reevaluate some things and say, okay, what's going on? Where have I erred? Because there's not many things that modern day conservatism is right about at all. Modern day conservatism, I'm trying to think if I should take a break here or just keep going, go to the next thing, because modern day conservatism is this delusion, it's this construct that needs constant affirmation, reinforcement. That's the word. It needs constant reinforcement with lies and fear and propaganda. It needs it nonstop, because if there ever comes a moment of clarity when the lies don't add up and you give yourself a moment to actually consider what they're telling you, people realize they're being lied to. I talked about it last week. A nursing friend of mine who looked at what Ben Carson said compared to what Ben Carson actually was doing in terms of her nursing profession. And she realized that Ben Carson is not the man who he says he is. Now, I knew that already. You listening knew that already. Most anybody knows that already. PolitiFact rated 16 of his statements. 16 out of 16 were either half true, mostly false, or pants on fire. So 16 out of the 16 statements that Ben Carson made has been not true, something other than true. So I knew that. But there was a moment of clarity where she was no longer being reinforced by the lies, by the fear, by the propaganda, by the hate, by the anger. And she found out for herself that it's not what it was cut out to be. And now she's going to vote for Bernie Sanders, right? I think that deserves an applause. If nothing else deserves an applause tonight. But that's the problem. Conservatism needs a steady flow of anger, hatred, bitterness, propaganda, lies. There are so many statements. There were only two. Let me put it like this. And I guess I'm just going to keep going tonight. Whenever I get tired of talking, I'll do a little break, a mental break. I've been trying to get a grasp on the type of lies and the number of lies, the intensity with which the conservative Republican Party has been lying to America. And I couldn't really get it last week, but over the weekend, I just did a lot of reading over at PolitiFact, which I think PolitiFact is going to just be my new home, because I do my very best to be factual and to tell the truth. And so it's good to have there's an organization out there that's already trying to do that. But I digress. The point is, as I was reading PolitiFact, and they rated statements from the GOP debate. Out of all the statements they rated, there were only two statements that actually rated true. Some were half true. Some were, mostly true, but there are only two statements that were true. And that was Marco Rubio discussing President Obama's number of times that he missed a vote when he was running for president. And there was something else that Marco Rubio said with regard to, there was two statements that Marco Rubio made in regards to President Obama, and both of those rated true. Everything else that they rated from that night, from Carly Fiorina to Chris Christie to Donald Trump, even everything else that Marco Rubio said, everything else that Ben Carson said, everything else that was said that night was rated by PolitiFact as half true, mostly false, or pants on fire. The torrent of lies, the tidal wave of lies is so large and so overwhelming that it's staggering. But what's more staggering than that is the level that conservatives desire it. They do not want to be told the truth, because being told the truth requires that they confront the reality that they've been living a lie all this time, that they've been angry at people that they should not have been angry with, that they have been promoting people that they should never have promoted because that person has been incessantly lying to them. That's a difficult thing. If I had to stop and pause and look back and say, let me pull somebody, let's say Bernie Sanders. I'm a fan of Bernie Sanders. I like Bernie Sanders. If I had to go and look at statements that Bernie Sanders made and saw that Bernie Sanders has lied to me once, not twice, not 3 times, not 4 out of 5 times, but 16 out of 16 times, like Ben Carson, that will mess with your head. That will mess with your emotional state, because you become vested. It's like your football team. It becomes, people make that analogy a lot, that it's like a sport. It is like a sport. What do you do when you find out that your team, that your beloved team has been cheating the entire time? You're going to reject that information. And actually, while I'm at it, I might as well just pull this graphic up, something that I worked on and pulled together over the weekend. The number of times statements. Let's go right here. I'll put it on your screen for those of you who are watching. There's only been one Republican who has told the truth more than half the time in all of the statements evaluated by PolitiFact. And that Republican is the Republican that is the least liked in the top 10, John Kasich. John Kasich is the only Republican that has told the truth more than half the time. He has been more truthful than Hillary Clinton. I believe John Kasich is like 48%. Like 51% truthful, and Hillary Clinton is like 50% completely truthful, either mostly true or completely true. That's it. Bernie Sanders is the most truthful out of them all, according to PolitiFact. But out of all of the Republican candidates, the statements that have been rated half true, mostly false, pants on fire by PolitiFact, all except one have been lying to you more than half the time. Ben Carson, not a single statement that has been rated by Ben Carson has been truthful. I presented this information to some conservatives, and immediately they went on the defensive, which is understandable, right? You know, if somebody came and told me that everything that President Obama has said, every single statement, 100 out of 100 statements has been a lie, I would have to go and look. But you know what else would happen for me? If I find out that President Obama has 100% of the time lied to me, according to an agency, and I can look at it myself and I can evaluate it myself and see their reasoning and see how they came to that conclusion, then I would have no other choice but to turn on President Obama. Thankfully, that's not the case with President Obama. President Obama has like a 60 or 65%. Some, you know, he's better than Hillary. He's better than most, but better than most conservatives. Bernie Sanders, like I said, is one of the most honest people. And then it's the quality of lies also. That's the thing. It's not just lies, it's the quality of lies. Bernie Sanders has been rated pants on fire, none, right? But the only statements that have been rated false for Bernie Sanders are things that he said in exaggeration. When he said Americans work the most hours in the world, it turns out Americans don't work the most hours in the world. We work a lot of hours, but we don't work the most hours. So they rated that as false. An exaggeration, hyperbole, fine. You know, President Obama has a lot of exaggerations that they rated false. They have a couple things that were half true. But in terms of, and I'm sure if I dig deeper in President Obama, after 8 years being in the White House, there's some things that he's probably flat out lied on. So I'm not even taking up for President Obama at this point. But I will say this about Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton, by PolitiFact, is rating right there with John Kasich, around 50% truth. Everything else has been either half true or, you know, so she's on that half and half mark, but they have been evaluating Hillary Clinton for like the last 8, 9, 10 years. She has over 133 statements that they have evaluated. She has fallen into the category of more truthful than people who have only been talking 5 or 6 times. Carly Fiorina. It just, you know, it's like the intensity with which they lie. It's like every time they open their mouth, it's a lie. And I got off track. The point of everything I'm saying is that when you have to confront the reality that the person that you love has been lying to you all this time, you either accept it and change, or you reject it and you reject the source. And you throw it away as propaganda. And that's what I found this weekend as I started talking to some conservative friends, and I presented them with this data that's from a nonpartisan, they're not God, right? They're not the final arbiter of what's true and what's not true, but they are pretty well accepted in the industry, right? From the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, Republicans use it, conservatives use it, everybody uses it. And when I presented them with the reality that every statement that has come out of Ben Carson's mouth has been, at best, half true, they decided, I don't want that information. It's propaganda. This is a lie. And one guy even said, well, there must be some racism involved. Now you want to believe there's racism. Now you want to believe there's racism because the person that the truth is offending you about over is black. That's the world that we live in. Okay, folks, I'm going to take a quick mental break. I'm going to take a quick break. When I come back, I want to talk about Black Lives Matter, Hillary Clinton, Feel the Burn, and what happened over the weekend, because that was a riot. A lot of things that I want to call out about that. And then I will close out with, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Republican debate and the new terms of the debate, right? They're trying to set out the terms. They want Sean Hannity or Rush Limbaugh or Glenn Beck to host the upcoming debates. So yeah, we'll see how that works. We'll take a quick break. I want you to join the conversation. 857-600-0518. This is the Benjamin Dixon Show. We will be back right after this. What's going on, everyone? This is Benjamin Dixon, and I wanted to take a minute to tell you how you can support the Benjamin Dixon Show. One thing I've learned over the last few months is that it is impossible for us to do this without you. Every time you click on a link, every time you read an article, every time you share a podcast or share a YouTube video, you are absolutely supporting our show. And without you, it's simply impossible. But there's another way you can support us. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com and register for our blog. You will be directly contributing to the success of the Benjamin Dixon Show by registering for our blog. You will help us increase our audience and increase our reach. Remember, every click counts, every subscribe counts, and every share counts. So go over to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com, click on the Contact Us tab, and register for our blog today. There is a radical, violent revolution taking place in America right now. Figuratively speaking, where we are ripping from the status quo the very notion that they have the right to define the status quo. We are ripping it from them. We are telling them that they no longer get to decide what America is going to look like. And that is terrifying for a lot of people. That is downright terrifying when someone comes into your home only to help you to understand that your home is not yours in isolation, that we share this home equally, and that we have the right to be comfortable in this home just as much right as you have to be comfortable, so that a white Christian straight man, the comfort that he feels in America will be experienced by the gay Black woman and every other intersection that has been erased. That, my friends, that is a revolution if I have ever seen one. That is something, that is the next stage of evolution in America.
Welcome back to the Benjamin Dixon Show.
He's obviously he's a radio show host or something like that.
You're damn right I am. All right, folks. Welcome back. Guys, give me the heads up. It looks like the comments, I'm trying to read comments from YouTube. Normally I can just read them, but they look like they have been disabled for this video, which really should not be the case. Comments are always good there, but you know, it is what it is. So Black Lives Matter decided to protest Hillary Clinton on Friday. Hillary Clinton was at a historically Black college and university. I don't remember the name of the university. It was in Atlanta. So I'm guessing probably Clark Atlantic University. If it was in Atlanta, it probably was that school. But anyway, the point is Black Lives Matter, or a offshoot of Black Lives Matter, because some people are saying it's not the official group, decided to protest Hillary Clinton. At that rally was the distinguished Congressman John Lewis, the mayor of Atlanta, Kasim Reed, and Usher, the artist Usher, a lot of people. The group came in to protest Hillary Clinton really early on, and they began shouting, "Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter." Hillary Clinton said, "Yes, they do matter, and give me a minute to talk, and I'm going to tell you about all the ways that they matter." Essentially what happened, Kasim Reed, John Lewis intervened to stop the protests so that people could hear what Hillary Clinton had to say. Then after the fact, there was videos that came out of Usher talking to one of the main protesters. Several different things that came out that that caused more of an uproar, particularly the protesters' comment in the terms of he's not really worried about John Lewis. Usher was trying to say, you know, what about John Lewis? And the protester was like, I'm not really worried about John Lewis. You know, I'm not talking about John Lewis. So immediately, obviously, international news, Black Lives Matter protests Hillary Clinton. The subtext of that protest is that Black Lives Matter was shut down by Black Democrats. That's not even the subtext. That's actually the headline. You know, Black Lives Matter has owed Hillary Clinton. I'm just going to be honest with you, right? All things considered, Black Lives Matter owes Hillary Clinton at least one more protest. That was just one, right? If this is just my personal thought, right? You came from my thought. If Martin O'Malley and Bernie Sanders can endure a protest from Black Lives Matter, and not only endure, but actually it made their platform stronger. That's what I argued after Phoenix, after Netroots Nation. My number one argument for both of them was that their positions on Black issues would be stronger because of these protests. And they were stronger. They came out strongly. Bernie Sanders has come out as one of the strongest voices of any presidential candidate who unequivocally says the names of people who were killed. Not only says the name, but actually has forwarded policies. Martin O'Malley has forwarded policies. The protests have absolutely shaped these candidates' thoughts, willingness to speak about it, and their platforms. So, for all intents and purposes, with the exception of Seattle, right? I think we can all agree that Seattle sucked. Seattle wasn't necessary. Seattle wasn't necessary because Bernie Sanders was already busting a move on behalf of Black Lives Matter, on behalf of criminal justice reform. But Netroots Nation, that wasn't the case. At Netroots Nation, he had not made those moves. At Netroots Nation, he wasn't ready to talk about it at the drop of a dime. Now he is. Why? Because Black Lives Matter protested and he realized that he had to get his thing together. Now, I said all of that to say, in every way imaginable, Black Lives Matter protests have made Bernie Sanders and Martin O'Malley stronger on those issues. Please tell me why Hillary Clinton should be protected from Black Lives Matter protest. If you can answer that question, I would love for you to call in 857-600-0518. Why is Hillary Clinton protected from the protest? That's number one. Number two, she's being protected by Black Democrats, particularly John Lewis, who, if anyone else understands protest, if anyone else understands the ability to use action to not only action, but disruption to bring attention to an issue, it's John Lewis. But something happens over time. You live long enough to become the establishment. And I believe that's exactly what has happened. John Lewis, God bless him. I have pictures. Okay, 1 second. So apparently I don't have. Oh, okay. I know what's going on here. Okay. Let's do something, guys. I want to put you on a brief hold while I do something very important here. I got to sign out of Skype on this computer. There we go. All the sound effects. John Lewis. I have pictures with John Lewis. I have a lot of respect for John Lewis, and caller, whoever that was, feel free to call back. I can get you on my computer over here on the left because that's the one I control. Anyway, so I have a lot of respect for John Lewis. I have a lot of admiration for John Lewis, but John Lewis is not the same man that he was in 1960. John Lewis is a great man, but that doesn't mean that John Lewis is going to be right on every single thing. That does not mean that John Lewis could not be a hindrance when he used to be the militant type, when he used to be the protester. He was the one that caused disruption and brought about change. So if anyone knows the effectiveness of these tactics, is John Lewis. And he pretty much said that, right? John Lewis said he admired the activism of the kids in Atlanta, or the young people in Atlanta on Friday. But what's being done is that a lot of people are attempting to co-opt John Lewis and are trying to put words in his mouth and use John Lewis as a way to buffer Hillary Clinton, when John Lewis himself is not trying to be in that role. The more I dig into his statements from what happened on Friday, the more I see he's trying to play a balanced position. Fine. So let's set John Lewis aside. But the way people are using John Lewis's name as a way of trying to silence Black Lives Matter to keep them from going at Hillary Clinton is preposterous. Because, first of all, John Lewis, if anyone knows what action can get done, what disruptions can get done, it would be John Lewis. But what's standing out the most to me is the number of people who were telling us that what Black Lives Matter was good, what Black Lives Matter was doing to Bernie and what they were doing to Martin O'Malley was good, then turn around and say, but you shouldn't do it to Hillary. That's the part that stands out the most to me. That's the part that jumped off the screen, and I can see that Black Lives Matter has not yet met any opposition like the Black Democratic elite, like the Black Democratic establishment, because the Black Democratic establishment ostensibly has the reins of the Black movement. And here comes all of these young people who have a different mindset, who have a different strategy, and who have a brand new energy, a brand new way of doing it. And they were shut down by Black Democrats protecting Hillary Clinton. Do I agree with Black Lives Matter all the time? No, I think anyone who's watched this show more than a week understands that I have my qualms with Black Lives Matter and their strategy. But if Bernie Sanders and Martin O'Malley can not only endure, but be improved by it. And not only that, let's just be real. Hillary Clinton on her own has some issues lingering that she needs to talk about, she needs to address, that she needs to get out in the open air and just discuss it. And not only that, but she needs to just forward her plan, her policies. Her policies are not as concrete, and her policies have not been rolled out. She's rolling them out piecemeal. And so there is reason for Black Lives Matter to still be calling Hillary Clinton out, not just because, I'm petty and I'm like, well, if they did it to, I'm a petty dude. I can admit that. If they did it to Bernie Sanders, then damn it, do it. They did it to Martin O'Malley, then hell, do it to Hillary Clinton. Not just my pettiness, but realistically, Hillary Clinton has a lot of things that she must be held accountable for. What is her policy? Where is it? What is the meat? What are the nuts and bolts of it? She has not rolled that out in a meaningful fashion completely as of yet. And if you want their votes, then you have to answer their questions. But what's amazing, what stood out the most, is that the people who shut it down were Black Democrats. Caller, what is your name, comment, and our question?
Hey, Benjamin, how you doing?
I'm doing great. What's your name, man?
This is Patrick. I'm calling from Miramar, Florida.
Patrick, I saw the 954 number, man. Glad to have you aboard. What's your comment and or question?
Well, two things. First, my first comment is I guess you're going to force me to create that PayPal account.
I know, man.
Get that PO box open.
I have it open, man. I have to go. Actually, just don't know the number. I have to go down there and get it. But I will get that. That's my bad. We'll get that taken care of. What's happening?
I'm just messing with you though. But my main point is to what you're talking about, and to me, there seems to be a broader problem, not just with the Black establishment, but the Democratic establishment as well. I mean, I know I tweeted you because I was dismayed, disheartened, let down, don't know what the proper terminology, when I saw progressive politicians like Bill de Blasio, when I saw Sherrod Brown, who 90% of the issues agree with Bernie Sanders, but they're siding with Hillary Clinton. I think Bill de Blasio's exact words were that where she's been the last 5 months, he agrees with her. And that stood out with me because he chose 5 months over 30 years. And then when I saw the Black Lives Matter protest, I'm like, this is really showing the power of the Democratic establishment, period, that they're cracking the whip. And I feel like us progressives, we worked too hard in so many years being the pariah, because liberal was a bad word for so many years in the political discourse, to now have progressivism co-opted, essentially, which is happening. When she's calling herself a progressive with zero pushback. I mean, yes, there's folks like you, but I'm talking about people mainstream outlets. They're accepting her as progressive.
Absolutely.
And I don't want the progressive movement. I remember years of being called liberal as a pejorative. And we finally made way to it's not accepted in the political discourse just to have it co-opted. And I want to know what your info was as to how can we reclaim it and hold those progressive politicians and the black establishment accountable to us true progressives.
So you're absolutely right. So it's not just the black establishment. What we saw on Friday was the black establishment shutting down Black Lives Matter, coming and surrounding Hillary Clinton and buffering her. I would argue this. I'm going to do two different things. I'm going to give my thought, and then I'm going to answer your question. I would argue that the people on Friday did a disservice to Hillary Clinton, because if you want Hillary Clinton to actually even stand a chance of winning over the vote that those kids represent, then she has to answer the question. She has to be able to endure the protest, because the kids, the young people, I don't want to keep calling them kids, but those young adults, they have something that they need to address, and they don't feel Hillary Clinton has had it addressed or has addressed it, right? So she has to be able to endure that. You cannot buffer her. You cannot buffer her and expect anyone to be ready to support her or rally behind her. That's number one. Now, to answer your question, it is absolutely the establishment as a whole, of which people like John Lewis is establishment. I love John Lewis, but John Lewis is as establishment as they come. Kasim Reed, anyone who's been in the Democratic Party for more than one election cycle, by your second election cycle, you are establishment. They are the problem in regards to you, exactly what you're asking, in regards to progressivism versus the establishment. They are trying to make it seem as though Hillary Clinton is a progressive. The only way we can win this argument, because it's important that we do this, this is what we have to win above all else. We cannot let anyone convince us or try to convince the nation that Hillary Clinton is a true progressive. Why does that mean anything at all? And why is it important? Because if we allow Hillary Clinton to be the standard for progressivism, then we just allow progressivism to be pushed further to the right than it already is. Everything in America has been shifting to the right further and further and further. And if we go around and try to redefine what a progressive is for the sake of getting Hillary Clinton elected, then we have just watered down what progressivism really is. If you want to support, and this is what I'm going to do between now and November of next year, you can support Hillary Clinton. You can vote for Hillary Clinton, but what you're not going to do is tell me Hillary Clinton is a progressive. You can tell me she's a moderate. You can tell me why voting for a moderate is best to get a Democrat in office to keep away all of the crazies in the Republican Party. We can have that debate. That's a reasonable debate for us to have. But what you're not going to do is get on my show or television or anywhere on Twitter, social media, and try to say that Hillary Clinton is a progressive, because at very best, she is an establishment status quo moderate. At the very best. And that's the way we have to address it. Patrick, thanks so much for the call, man. I want to grab this other call. Caller.
Call from unknown caller. To add this caller to your current call, press 5. Okay.
810, give me a call back, and I will click the right button this time. 857-600-0518. I'm a little rusty. I've switched everything around. You can see I have a different background, so different mouse in different places, but we'll get the hang of it. But that's the most important thing, right? Let's say Hillary Clinton beats Bernie Sanders. She doesn't beat him as a progressive. She beats him as a moderate that people are comfortable voting for, because they're still afraid of progressivism and they're afraid of quote unquote socialism, because they see socialism as a pejorative still. If that happens, that's a reflection of where we are as a nation. But we do not let them redefine what true progressivism just for the sake of trying to convince and co-opt. That's what Patrick said, co-opt what it is to be a progressive. That's completely unacceptable, because even this conversation with Bernie Sanders, with Occupy Wall Street, with Black Lives Matter, they're all one big conversation in terms of progressivism and how we move the nation forward for everyone, every marginalized group, right? That's what the conversation is about. That conversation doesn't end if Hillary Clinton beats Bernie Sanders. But if we let that conversation be redefined by Hillary Clinton's moderate status, then we do a bigger detriment we do a bigger detriment to what it is to be a progressive than if Hillary Clinton beats Bernie Sanders, and we know she beat him only because she was a moderate. Long story short, do not let anyone running around social media, television, or anywhere else try to convince you that Hillary Clinton is a true progressive, because she's not. Does that mean you can't support her? That does not mean that at all. Maybe you want to support a moderate. Caller, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and or question? 810, you are live on the air. What is your name, comment, and or question? All right, I think I lost that call. But that's where we are. So back to the Black Lives Matter incident. I think it was, and then you saw people. This is what bothered me also. You saw people online who previously supported the protest against Bernie Sanders, the protest against Martin O'Malley, and they were saying some of the same things that I'm saying, like, this is good. They need to answer. They need to be held accountable. All of a sudden, I saw them scurrying around to defend Hillary Clinton. I even saw people try to blame what happened on Bernie Sanders. Like, people could not even say Hillary Clinton messed up. They ended up saying Hillary Clinton's people getting on my nerves and Bernie Sanders people. No, this has nothing to do with Bernie Sanders. Don't bring Bernie Sanders in this just because you can't say one without the no. This was Hillary Clinton's day, and she messed up. And the Black Democrats, who I believe are going to be the #1 challenge for Black Lives Matter going forward. Going forward, it will be Black Democrats that would be the worst enemy to Black Lives Matter, because they are as establishment as Hillary Clinton ever would want to be. Caller, what is your name, comment, and or question? I don't know what's going on today. 810, I don't know if your mic is off, but I have you live, and we'll have to check your line, check your signal. But that's the #1 challenge that they're going to face. And I think it's telling. It's telling to the reality of what Black Lives Matter is really up against. You thought they were up against something with Feel the Burn. They haven't seen anything yet. We're going to try this one more time. There we go. Caller, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, or question? And turn the radio down in the background if you don't.
Hey, Ben, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. What's on your mind?
Hey, this is the other Patrick, man. Listen, this is definitely one that got up on me, man. First and foremost, I couldn't wrap my arms around African Americans for Hillary. And I know that she has a Latino group for Hillary and women for Hillary, but this thing got me. And so I'm watching how all of this is playing out. And then I see the group come out. And as the protest began, I began to see people look almost like afraid, like, oh my God, what do we do? And so one of my first issues is not only do you have John Lewis and Kasim Reed come off down there, like they're going to tell these people and they're going to be quiet because they came. The other part of the issue was that now you have African Americans.
Patrick, I lost you there. Let's see. All right, Patrick, if you come back in, I'll leave your line open, Patrick, and you can just keep talking whenever you get back on. So apparently, yeah, it is the case that my comments were disabled for tonight. I have no idea. Maybe that's a new default for YouTube, is to have comments disabled. So I apologize. I know we missed a lot of great conversations on that. And I wish that wasn't the case, but unfortunately it was. All right, folks, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's my new show time. I will be updating the website. I will be updating social media to make sure that you know where it is. Thank you all so much who came tonight and participated. As soon as this video is up, you should be able to you should be able to leave comments, leave your everything that you normally do. I want you to go over Twitter and follow me at the BPD Show. I definitely want you to subscribe right where you are. Click the subscribe button, share, all of that other stuff. And it's the Benjamin Dixon Show. Appreciate you and couldn't do it without you. You guys have a great night.
When we, the Americans, are able to accept the fact that on that continent we are trying to forge a new identity for which we need each other, that I am not a ward of America, I am one of the people who built the country. Until this moment.
And we are brothers. It's not a question of Jews or Christians or Muslims. We're all in the same boat.
We need each other.
Love is a condition so powerful. It may be that which holds the stars in the firmament.
Until this moment.
Love.
Until this moment.
Love.
Until this moment.
I come to you today to say that we can build a newer and better nation. I say we can do so, that we must do so, and that we will do so.
You've tuned in to The Benjamin Dixon Show. Visit us online at www.thebenjamindixonshow.com.